Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start tonight with this morally murky story of the prisoner exchange. Let's look at the terms of trade. We got back a soldier who had walked off the base into the hands of the Taliban. The Taliban who took him prisoner got 5 of the most dangerous terrorists we Americans had in our hands. We don't know where this soldier we got back stands on the war over there in Afghanistan, but we can bet on the loyalties of the 5 we just let go. After all these years at Gitmo, is there any doubt who they'll be rooting for in this fight? The only question is, what role will they play? And yes, with all that said, all the moral murkiness and danger to our country in the future, do we leave a soldier in enemy hands if we have a chance to free him? Do we? Tonight, the brutal choice President Obama made, a choice he will now have to stand up to long after he has left office, a choice that got one American back home and left enemies of America free to roam, free to decide how they will bring misery to this country they hate. Goldie Taylor served in the Marine Corps and is an MSNBC contributor. The Daily Beast's Kim Dozier covered the war in Afghanistan and was critically injured herself covering that war in Iraq. After 5 years in captivity, Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl was flown to a military hospital in Germany on Sunday. At their home in Idaho, his parents spoke to their son through the media. Let's watch.
5 years is a seemingly endless long time, but you've made it. I imagine you are more patient and compassionate than ever. You are free. Freedom is yours. I will see you soon, my beloved son. I love you, Bo.
And I want you to know that I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of your character. I'm so proud of your patience and your perseverance.
Well, 2 years ago, the late Michael Hastings wrote an extensive profile of that captured soldier. He was not the typical enlistee. Bergdahl first tried to join the French Foreign Legion. And the U.S. military fellow soldiers described his behavior as odd. Before deploying to Afghanistan, he reportedly told one soldier, quote, "If this deployment is lame, I'm just going to walk off into the mountains of Pakistan." He also grew extremely disillusioned with the mission in Pakistan or Afghanistan once he was there. He emailed his parents shortly before his disappearance, quote, "The future is too good to waste on lies, and life is way too short to care about the damnation of others, as well as to spend it helping fools with their ideas that are wrong. I have seen their ideas, and I am ashamed to even be an American." The horror of this self-righteous arrogance that they thrive in, it is revolting. I am sorry for everything here. These people need help, yet what they get is the most conceited country in the world telling them that they are nothing and that they are stupid, that they have no idea how to live. Well, meanwhile, yesterday, Bergdahl's father, Bob, made this somewhat cryptic statement. Let's watch.
I'm proud of how much you wanted to help the Afghan people and what you were willing to do to go to that length.
Thank you very much, Kim. Would you have any idea what he meant there? Did he mean something about his going, sort of leaving his post, leaving his rifle and uniform behind, heading off in the direction of Pakistan, being picked up by the Taliban? What did he mean helping the Afghan people in that process? I don't quite get that.
You have to remember that the Bergdahls have been without their son for 5 years and that they have engaged in an outreach program to the Taliban through intermediaries, getting from the Taliban proof of life videos and delivering letters to their son. I don't know how many letters.
Is that the Afghan people they mean?
This has been part of their process to get Bo home. So they're still talking that way. Now, we're going to have to hear from Bergdahl himself when he gets out of the hospital. There are a lot of his fellow soldiers who helped on raids and rescue missions to try to get him out, who are angry. They have questions about why he walked off the base. They would like to see an investigation. But U.S. officials I've spoken to say there's not going to be an investigation. And in terms of why you rescue him, he was a U.S. soldier in uniform.
No, he wasn't in uniform. He left his uniform behind.
He was a serving U.S. soldier.
But he left his post, and he said, this is what I don't understand. Okay. Was he AWOL? And if not, why not? Why didn't they declare him AWOL? He's been missing. He walked into enemy hands, apparently not on purpose, but he was heading out of the country.
Because they couldn't ask him why he left, and because in the proof of life videos, he asked for the help from the U.S. government to come home. On the strength of that, they couldn't leave him out there. And also with the U.S. Presence shrinking, They had been able to watch him over these past several years and check on his health and his well-being remotely, sometimes through spies, sometimes electronically. They knew that they were going to be losing access to that.
Yeah.
So their chances, their clock was running out on a chance to get him out.
What is your sense? Can you report on what the military feels about this whole thing? Do they feel that it was right to take the steps to releasing 5 potentially, in fact, reasonably dangerous people? One could argue they've been kept in Gitmo because we can't try them, but we didn't want to release them. Do they think that's a good deal for America?
The military is not monolithic. If you talk to some of the officials who brokered this deal, they'll tell you this is how wars end. Wars end in negotiation.
Wars end?
This is how wars end. They end in negotiation with your enemies.
No,
So that's how
is this a war-ending negotiation?
They saw this as part of the steps of withdrawing from Afghanistan, reaching out to the Taliban, making a trade, and that possibly this would kickstart reconciliation talks with the Afghan government. That's the larger picture.
Have you got that from anybody?
I've got that from a couple of officials.
How high
yes.
up are they saying this may lead to some sort of peace treaty with the Taliban?
No, they don't go that far. They say they are hoping that this will be a trust-building measure that will help the Taliban start talking again with the Afghan government.
I just wonder what that could. Women have to now be covered up. Their face have to be covered up. No more movies over there. They blow up Buddhas again. Are we going back to crazy Taliban behavior?
Hey, I was just over in Kabul. Women don't have to be covered up.
I'm talking about
everywhere.
the Taliban gets power again.
If the Taliban gets power again.
Well, what kind of deal are we striking with these people?
Not if the Taliban becomes a political party that runs in the next election. That is the U.S. administration's ideal situation.
And accepts losing.
Indeed.
Well, in other words, they're democratic forces now. They accept democracy.
They're not there yet, but that is what every administration official I've spoken to
this is definitely a hopeful thing. Anyway,
towards.
On Sunday, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel responded to critics who said the administration was negotiating with terrorists. Let's watch Chuck Hagel.
Sergeant Bergdahl is a member of the United States Army. This was a prisoner exchange. After 5 years, he's been a prisoner of war. We didn't negotiate with terrorists. I don't think what we did in getting our prisoner of war released in any way would somehow encourage terrorists to take our American servicemen prisoner or hostage.
Well, some critics have questioned whether the price was too high for someone who, it's been widely reported, walked off his base. Here was Bill Kristol today on Morning Joe.
There's a lot of reporting that he wasn't taken in battle. He just seems to have deserted or at least got AWOL. He may have cooperated with the enemy after they captured him. Soldiers died trying to find him. It's one thing to trade terrorists for a real POW, for someone who's taken on the battlefield fighting honorably for our country. Right. It's another thing to trade away 5 high-ranking terrorists or someone who walked away.
Goldie Taylor, help us out here. We went to war in Afghanistan because the Taliban was in power. We killed a lot of Taliban people, took over the country, turned it over to Karzai's crowd, and basically we continue to fight our soldiers over there right through this moment. The Taliban. We are killing Taliban if they're coming at us. They're killing us if they get their chance. We're giving 5 of the most dangerous Taliban people back to those people in exchange for a soldier that walked into their midst in leaving his post. Does this make sense?
I think it makes sense to me because, you know, in my mind as a former Marine, we leave no man behind. We don't qualify that based upon whether they were AWOL.
Didn't he leave his unit behind?
Whether he was AWOL or deserted, or he was still a U.S. soldier. He was still a U.S. citizen, and we don't leave him behind. Now, what happens when he comes home after he is medically discharged and after we are able to assess what happened to him, what happened that night, then maybe, just maybe there are charges. But I contend that 5 years, you know, in captivity with the Taliban is probably payment enough.
Well, that's your judgment. But let me ask you about this question.
Yes, that's my
he
judgment.
left his uniform behind, he left his rifle behind, and he told people if he didn't like the mission, he was heading to Pakistan. What was he doing?
Well, we also don't know what his mental state was that evening. We don't know what the duty of care was by his unit to him to keep him on that base. I mean, there are arrests in quarters, you know, in units, and so we don't know what the responsibility was. I think we let the facts come out and let them fall where they may. But the very notion that we needed to put people into harm's way, to go and get him home. That's our responsibility, and that's what we sign up for, that we know that somebody sometime is coming for us.
Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about politics, not the Marine Corps or any of the units involved. Everybody's over there serving their country nobly and courageously. The question is, from the top, the United States government is at war with the Taliban. They are, in effect, at war with the Taliban. We went into that country to overthrow the Taliban, to kill them if they got in their way. And now we're sending five of the killers back to where they came from. And there's no doubt they were too dangerous to try, too dangerous to let go. That's why we have Gitmo. So we're sending them back over there to do what? What kind of a trade is this?
You know, George Bush let go 540, and you know the Israelis let go, you know, well over 1,000 in exchange for one. And so these trades do happen, and politically they are very difficult. But to say that this presidency or this administration did not do the appropriate assessments to make certain that these people are held in Qatar for a year and that they are not immediately released, that there are some precautions taken there, I think they are. I think that.
Well, why a year? What kind of deal is a year? We won't let somebody kill you.
Well,
what kind of a deal is that? You don't, if you think they're safe and they're not going to cause any trouble, you don't set a year deadline. They can't do anything for a year. You don't have to make those deals. My question is this. I'm going to go back to Kim. The reporting. If any one of those five guys is tied into a terrorist operation for the rest of our lives and the rest of the president's life, who's going to get blamed?
The Obama administration. But think of it another way. If they're now heading back in a year to Afghanistan, you think they're not going to get watched? I've already spoken to people in the intelligence and special operations world who are just waiting to follow them.
They got rings on their toes? How are you going to follow them?
See who they call, see who they email. There are other ways to finish this story.
Is there any way to literally, can you tag them?
I think it's classified. No, I don't think you can.
The confidence that I heard throughout this day is, oh, we'll kill them in the field. It's easier to try and let them go out and we'll catch them coming back. We got a lot of confidence in our intelligence that we can catch these guys once they're loose.
It's not my confidence in the intelligence folks. It's the people I'm speaking to saying we've made the best of a bad situation. We got an American soldier home. We'll figure it out from here.
Okay, thank you, Goldie. I love your passion and patriotism. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you might be wrong. We'll see. Kim Dozier, thank you. Coming up, who are those five guys? The ones being called the worst of the worst who were released as part of this deal. Does the president trust them not to fight, or does he trust us, as I said?